Euzubillahimineşşeytanirracim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yessir li emri ve ahlul ukdeden min lisani yefkahu kavli. Selamun aleyküm ve rahmetullahi ve berekatuh. Inshallah, we will continue with our discussion on the purpose of Quran. How to read scriptures, how to read Quran, speech of God. So we spent some time on basics, and then we read one example on how to read prophetic stories, how to read seemingly historical narrations. And inshallah, we will read another example today. But before doing so, as usual, let's do a pop quiz. Who has the microphone? I know you did your game. Yeah. Who has the microphone? Microphone should be somewhere. Okay. Abdurrahman, since your wife treated you, would you like to remind us what we discussed so far with respect to the purpose of Quran, how to read scriptures and so on, and specifically, apparently, seemingly historical narrations? And then we can continue with an example text, inshallah. Who wants to give us a summary? Burhan was not even here, so.
He said he was here last week.
Okay, I mean, if you want, of course. We have many online participants, they are waiting, so please.
I'm trying to think last week. You don't want last week specifically, just
No, in general, before we start with an example text.
okay. In general, I mean, I had already done a case study of it earlier with the first flash, but the general approach is, how do we define the Quran? To be able to approach the Quran, we need to have some sort of definition of it. We need to have some sort of definition of ourselves as well. Like, who are we? What are we doing? And then also, when we come to the Quran, what do I expect from it? What is this going to tell me about my creator or what I'm looking for? If I look to the Quran to maybe explain to me only like, just like, let's say, is there a sea that doesn't mix with another sea or something, like physically, or to find that, is that fulfilling the purpose of it? At the same time, not negating all those other meanings and everything else it can mean, but when I come to the Quran, like, what's my main reasoning? What's my approach? And the idea of the last few weeks is guidance, really the approaches of trying to seek guidance. And we talked about if the Quran was created or not. But essentially, the main point I got from that is, when I come to the Quran, the revelation or the meanings I get, that's always created on the spot. Like, when I read it, when I come to it. And that's because the one who creates it is absolute, is all knowing, and is creating everything. The meaning I get is also, it can encompass, it can be a very comprehensive and insightful meaning. It's not only just stuck 1400 years ago. And yeah, in that vein. And then I remember reading the case study of Prophet Jonah. And when we read that, we were like, yes, this might be a true story. And then moving to the next step, how do then we read this in our life? How, like, for example, how do I put myself or see myself as Prophet Jonah in that example, in that story? Or how do I even like see a fish in my life, or the fish coming and swallowing me? What does that mean for my life? And what is the ocean in my life, and the ships? So like, trying to read the guidance into my life, having it become practical and meaningful for my life, like a personal actual relationship, like it's personally relevant for my life. So trying to read the Quran in that way. That's what I remember.
Good, Jazakallah khairan. Alhamdulillah. Any other comments, additions? So what is let's start from there. What is the starting point? Like, what is the main question which drives, everything we get out of a text? And what is the first question? Like we have a Quran in our hands, for instance, or another book, doesn't matter. We see the different people getting different meanings out of it, or different interpretations and so on and so forth. What is the main driving factor there for this difference? We studied that. What we get out of it will change based on how we define it, right? What is it? What it is in our hands. If I take it as, oh yeah, this is a book written by a certain person in certain time and so on, what am I going to get from it will change. But if I take it as, okay, what is it? What is my expectation out of it, right? How I define it eventually will change everything. But even before that, maybe, because I'm reading for myself to get guidance out of it, how I define myself also will change everything, right? So I'm just highlighting these keywords that we already discussed. And inshallah, we will continue with an example how Imam Nursi reads one specific story of Prophet as a case study. Abdurrahman, you want to say something?
No, I just remembered last week there was this big emphasis on how can we be careful to not misinterpret the Quran or not fall into like making mistakes. And there was this big emphasis on using the prophetic tree and learning from the Prophet and his Sunnah and how he read the Quran and how his students read the Quran and making sure that that was a guidance for us. Like that we do have guides. We're not just alone trying to interpret it in our own vacuum.
Okay, alhamdulillah. You want to say something?
Is Arsalan online?
Oh, no.
Okay.
You want me to text?
So before leaving last week, Arsalan asked a very relevant question. Because at the end of last week's discussion, the major points was this is how we started. We start with Zarar's question, saying that is Quran in the mercy of my interpretation? And then we said that there's something implicit assumption about this question. So we rephrased the question. And then we said, no matter what we do, it's an interpretation. The prophets is an interpretation, but prophet is the first student of the creator, therefore worthy a proper interpretation. That's why last week's title was Limits of Interpretation for when reading Quran. Arslan was asking the question saying that if you are going to benefit from prophetic teachings, it is another interpretation. It's even double filtered interpretation because prophet said something or acted in a way, and we are hearing it from the lens of some narrator. So now we are trying to interpret Quran through this double filtered interpretation. He even asked it in a different way. He said that Sirah, the life of the Prophet, is history. Like there are a lot of historical accounts, and the reliability of historians are even like more questionable. Let's say the hadith narrations are crystal, like to the extent of those people, they put their best effort. But even when it comes to life story of the Prophet, it is history. So then am I going to interpret Quran in the lens of the perspective of historians? And then a very brief answer about that, as Imam Nursi gives, is there are 4 things that teaches us about our Creator, because we are trying to find answers to what am I here? What am I on this earth? And Nursi mentions 4 major resources. One, he says, is this universe, the existence itself. The second one is the Quran, which is the interpreter of the universe. The third one is the Prophet ﷺ, which is the student of the Creator who is reading the universe in the light of Quran and the Creator's teaching. And then a fourth one, he mentions conscience, human conscience. And everybody knows in their own sanity whether I am tricking someone, whether I am tricking myself and whatnot. So this is why a proper interpretation is going to be a co-work of these four resources. So prophet and prophetic legacy is an important foot of that. So we can think of it like four-footed table. So Quran is there, the existence, the universe is there, the prophetic teaching is there, and then the fourth one is human conscience, because sometimes I would like to interpret it in a way that I would like it to be this way, and I know it. I'm just trying to pull it in the way that it's going to legitimize my wishes and whatnot. If I deep inside question myself, I know where I am pulling towards. So this is another fourth one. So I guess seeing the big picture in the light of these four legs might help better.
And for each of these legs also, I guess the main question is how we define them. Like when it comes to creation, the universe, you said, right? So based on how I define the universe, everything will change. If I look at the universe and I see that, oh yeah, something is happening and the rest doesn't, I don't care. It's just happening. And I will take it as this. Then the universe will be a playground for my, let's say, the ego. Like I will exploit it. I will try to make a technological advancement so that I can benefit from the resources and so on. That would be my life because I defined the universe this way. But if I define the universe as what is going on, like how this thing can even exist, right? There must be something behind it. And I see that everything in the universe makes sense. They support each other, right? From every perspective, there is a unity between things. And I see a tree and I see how it is connected to the air, to the sun, to the minerals in the earth, the water, the humans, animals, and so on. When I see the universe this way, now I will take it as, oh, there must be a creator behind it. And then making some jumps here. Then I see that this creation will be a speech of the creator. When I realize everything is changing constantly and so on. And we discussed these parts, so I'm moving quickly. Based on how I defined the universe, what I get out of it changed, right? Now, if I can define universe in this way, then I can say that this universe is telling me about its creator. Then comes the second one, you said, the prophet. Again, depending on how I define prophet. What is prophet for me? Everything will change. What I'm going to get out of, let's say, prophetic narrations, hadith, right? If I define prophet or seerah, if I define prophet as an intelligent guy who was so good, so merciful, he taught everything to his people, he was a great leader and so on, every hadith will become a historical fact for me. The seerah will be collection of what he did, what war he won, what war he was defeated, and so on and so forth. It will be about these actions. But if I define prophet as he is the student of the creator, like a lab assistant, right? He was trained so that he would train us. He had a mission to teach us about the creator. When I define prophet in this way, every hadith, every narration, the seerah will change completely. Now, seerah is not anymore collection of wars or achievements or strategic decisions and so on and so forth. The seerah will become just a manifestation or the case studies of the revelation, iman. I will ask, okay, by doing so, what did Prophet mean? Well, by doing so, what he was trying to teach people about the Creator. Right? What I get from Sirah, what I get from the Hadith, changed based on how I define. Then how I define my conscience. If I just take it as the outcome of some neuronal activations and so on, just it's happening again by itself, I will just take it as a byproduct of some evolutionary process, and I will even sometimes try to silence it. It's just, telling me something randomly. Or because I ate too much, now I feel this way, but it's about the food. There's no message there to extract if I take it this way. But when I realize everything I feel, everything I think, everything, my conscience tells me is being created just like everything else in the universe, then it will become another speech of my Creator. But only if I can define it this way. And then the Qur'an. How you define it, what you get out of it will change. So it always starts with your definition, your expectation. If you define Qur'an as teaching us how universe works, then you will open the Qur'an and you will get some political ideas. This is how the system of politics works. Quran will teach us. Or you will get some sociological, the ideas. Oh, Quran is teaching how should we treating these Jewish people or Christian people or this munafiq that we don't know, but we will look for, who is munafiq, who is not munafiq. Depending on the definition. If you define Quran as, oh, he's the best source of what happened before, like the history book, and every ayah we read will become a historian work. And then, to be honest, we will say, oh, this is not the best history book ever written. So maybe I should read something else. So it's all, again, like the way I see it, always boils down to how you define. What do you expect? Comments, questions? Yeah.
So when it comes to defining the Quran, I'm just thinking about what kind of relationship you need to have with the Quran, because sure, I can sit down and maybe even list the 20 things Nursi has or 30 things or whatever, or some other definitions other people tell me. But I guess it's not enough to just have defined them in the beginning or be like, okay, the Quran is like this. Or maybe that's my question. I'm trying to see, how do I define the Quran? So let's say Nursi tells me the Quran is a pre-eternal speech. And if I just say, oh, okay, he says this is now a definition, and now I approach it, have I defined it correctly? Is this what defining it is? Or is there something else that I can't just accept what someone says? Maybe there's some confirmation that needs to go into it. There needs to be some type of live, I don't know, trial and error or feedback or something. Like, it seems that I can't just say, okay, Quran is a pre-eternal speech, and then it changes for me. Or maybe then I keep reading and I see maybe it doesn't seem to be some other definition someone gave me, or maybe it's like, oh, it's actually deeper. Like, how do you have update those? Where's the feedback? Or is there supposed to be a feedback? Like,
Online folks, you can also talk if you like.
So I think feedback would be looking mostly to my satisfaction as a human. So again, when it comes to my humanity, I guess the best example is relationship between child and mother. So I am sure about my mother's mercy towards me. And if somebody comes and defines, I mean, definition is too technical of a term, but let's say mothers are merciful, somebody says, or mothers are sources of mercy, somebody says, I would immediately say, yes, indeed they are. Because by my experience, I can confirm that. And the receiver of mercy somehow is embedded in me. I know what it tastes like, what it feels like. So if somebody comes up with such a description of a mother, I say, sure, this is indeed what it is. And then they would say, well, this behavior that your mom was acting towards you, now interpreted from this lens, then I would say, yeah, this is a meaningful approach. If they say, well, on top of that, your mother is a human being, and human beings have shortcomings, I say, well, I can also relate to that too, because by my experience, I know what it means to have shortcomings. Then your mom treated you like this, but now combine two things. She is merciful, yet at the same time, as a human, has shortcomings. Now I can relate to that. I don't need a third party to come up with a, like the confirmation in this case is coming from what is given to me as a human being. This is what I understand from when Quran describes, we taught Adam the names. Human is taught names, meaning you are given ability to recognize mercy. You are given ability to recognize knowledge and whatnot. So when it comes to definitions of Quran, when it comes to who the prophet is, those definitions should be based on those fundamental human needs, which are embedded in you. Using Quranic terminology, what is taught to you as a human being. So Quran will come and will introduce me that definition. I will say, I will consider it, and I will say, yeah, indeed, that makes sense. Prophet will come, say something, I would say, well, actually, I was expecting a guide like you, because as a human, I am in need of a guide. Even animals need guides, and the Creator gives them guides. So I think this is how I will relate to this sort of definitions. Otherwise, any two definition is not the same. This is what I'm trying to say. It's not that any grammatically sound sentence is equally valid of a description or definition. This is not the case. The confirmation comes from what is taught to me as a human being, and those little babies are human beings in making. They are taught, and they are being taught, and you observe that as they grow. You see that they appreciate mercy. They appreciate small little animals. Sometimes I'm being shocked to see how Ali nowadays, as he's the smaller one, how he's figuring things out. I say, well, did he learn this from? How is he treating, if he takes a piece of bread for himself, he says, for sister as well. So he asks another piece to take it back to Zainab. I said, where did he get this from? So human is taught such mercy, compassion, by which we can relate to. And when those descriptions that you were mentioning, let's say a scholar comes and says, here are 50 descriptions of Quran, I will say, well, let me see. I read them and I say, indeed, this is really what I would expect the one who created me to talk to me in this way. So that should be, I think, the description.
So when you have a, let's say, a new machine, what is the most complex things you have? You have a lot of technological gadgets. Come on. Let's say you have a smart watch, right? I mean, you will take it, you will start using it, and there are some part of it that you can figure it out by your, let's say your brain, your whatever you have, your human faculties, you can figure out how it works to some extent, right? You don't even need to read anything. You just take it out from the box, put on your wrist, and start using it. If you need some more in-depth understanding of it, where you would look? Online, okay. And then you will search for some discussions and so on, or videos, whatever. If you need something even more accurate, like you want to say that, okay, you want something that right, which is called user manual, right? I mean, you can take it like from online site. That's okay. It doesn't need to be printed out. So, but you will look at the user manual, right? So how you define user manual? What is user manual? Why you are looking at the user manual? Not a tutorial that I wrote, but the user manual. Why? From the source, right? Like there's a definitional difference between the two. A tutorial that I wrote about the smartwatch, you would say, oh, he's a guy. He used it. He figured out to some extent, and then he's explaining to me. But if you have some questions that I cannot answer, and you want a reliable information about it, right? You don't want to waste the battery life, for instance. You want to optimize, then you will look at the user manual. So that means you have a definition for this user manual. You say that whoever made this watch and made it this way with all these complex functions and so on, and selling to me. So there's a purpose of all these functions. So the company cannot be crazy and not write a user manual. It would be so crazy, right? Otherwise, like putting all these functions, all these functionalities, it can do hundreds of things, but nobody will know it. It would be very crazy. Like you wouldn't trust such a company. You wouldn't buy a product from such a company. So you say there must be a user manual. So you have this implicit definition for the user manual now. You are saying that the user manual is written by the maker of this product. They know the best use of this product. They know how to optimize the battery and so on and so forth. And there must be such a user manual, and I will look at it. So this is your definition. You don't need an external entity telling you the user manual means this or that. This comes from your expectations, your interaction with the product. The same way when you start looking at yourself, the universe around you, you say there must be a user manual of it. Because to some extent I can figure it out, right? Just like the watch. You can figure out some things in the universe by tutorials, other people, ideas, and so on. But when it comes to really understand it, really understand yourself, you said there must be a user manual of it by the one who made all this. So this is your definition now. And you look for it, and somebody comes and tells you, oh, by the way, the maker of the universe, the watch, or who gave me, he gave me this, the manual. You would say, oh, I was looking for his manual. Let me see. And you will start reading it. You will try whether what is written in the manual matches with the functions of the watch. And you say, okay, this is the user manual, I trust. Now you have a definition for it. You will not take it as, for instance, if there are some drawings in it, you will not take it as an artwork. You will not say that, oh, they will just ascribing some art in the book. No, you will say, that must be a technical, what is it called? Diagram. It must be a technical diagram showing some function of the watch. Why? Why you are not looking at as a map or a kid scribbling, like a scribbling? What is it? Yeah. Why? Because you have a definition for the user manual. So it must be a technical diagram of the watch, because this is a user manual of the watch. This is what I expect from it. And if this technical diagram doesn't match the watch, you will say, oh, this is a fake user manual. Just like, you say, oh, this is the fake scripture or whatever. Oh, there's a comment, I guess. There.
But then do you not expect the user manual to be standardized or to mean one thing? Because when it comes to the purpose of life, right, it's the same for everyone. Yeah, just, do good, avoid evil, worship God, and that's about it. So don't you create problems when you say, like that the user manual should be different for other people so that they perceive the world in their own way? Like that sort of destroys the purpose of the user manual, no?
I don't know where to start. Go ahead, please. Yeah.
So if that's a computer and like there is a artist, a lawyer, an electrical engineer, a mathematician, a medical doctor, a theologian, a historian, all of them are different. And they're going to use the
Oh,
same.
I'm nothing.
So all of them are going to use the same computer and do good and not do evil and whatnot. But they're going to do all different things using the same computer, though, isn't it? Like what it means for a lawyer to do good versus a mathematician to do good versus a doctor to do good differs because they start in different places in life. They are given different things in life. So you are given a different personality. Burhan is given a different personality and whatnot. So what it means to get to know the creator, because the means would be different. So this is why your creator would be speaking to you specifically in your specific circumstances, and then will invite you to get to find himself accordingly. The message is one, but what you will take out of the message would be tailored towards who you are, what you are meant to be, and will differ for everybody else accordingly. Still, there's a proper way of using computer for all of us. Like even although it's a computer and you're an engineer, he's a lawyer and whatnot, you shouldn't try to, hammer a nail to the wall using a computer. Like that's clear. And you should be using your keyboard properly. That's clear. But how you use it versus a lawyer uses it, an engineer uses it would differ. So there is, this is what we were trying to do in last week, limitations of interpretation. So how you're going to worship your creator, and I'm not talking about the shape of it, but your understanding, what you're expected to, you can get to find your creator through being an engineer or being a female. For this gentleman, as a college student right now, a few years later, as a married man without children, later on as a father, later on as a grandfather and whatnot, it's changing, dynamically changing, even for the very same person. So it's not the same Qur'an for you throughout your life either, because you are changing constantly. So this is why the interpretation would differ as you go down the road.
And when we ask such, let's say, the fundamental questions like the purpose of Quran or how we define Quran and so on, going to to the end directly and talking about the purpose of life, like we should start from the beginning. And like I'm saying that, like currently we are in a situation saying that I don't know the purpose of life. And nothing in the universe is telling me what I'm supposed to do. Nothing in the universe is telling me why I'm getting older. I don't know. Like, we don't know how to read at this point. Like pretending that I already know the answer, the purpose of life, this, and then Birkan, let's try to fit your definition or explanation to this. You see, like, we are here, but we're trying to explain something there. So we will have this definition, our expectations from the scripture. We say there must be a user manual. There must be, whoever created me and so on must be speaking to me. That's my expectation. But then, doesn't this speech needs to be standard and so on? I don't know, like, well, where did you come up with such an idea? I just expect that there must be such a speech. It must speak to me. It must answer my questions. It must also answer his questions, even her questions, right? That's my expectation. And then I start reading it with these expectations. I get something out of it. Like trying to impose some other things on top of it, but it needs to be standard. It needs to be in Swedish language. Where did you come up with this? I have a book in front of me, and the question is, how am I going to read it? With what purpose? How I define it? And then it will explain to me. That's my expectation. It should tell me what is the purpose, why I'm getting older. It should tell me, because I don't know the answer. That's the beginning part. Sorry? Who is reading? Let's read the second flash. Okay. So this is flashes and the second flash. It shouldn't be too hard to find. Let's give people 1 or 2 minutes to open it on the phones, if you have. Again, flashes, second flash. Oh yeah, please.
So, like, to reflect on a specific verse in the Quran, so I need to know like tafsir of this verse, and also, well, based on the history, like the story behind it, and also my personal experience. So I need all of these to reflect on Quran, or just like me, my understanding will help me reflect on the Quran.
That's a great question. There's also a question from online. Let me read it as well, and then we can discuss together. He says, this might be redundant from last week, but I'm just having trouble wrapping my head around this. So I need guidance, and then guidance comes to me in the form of Quran. But then I need further guidance to be able to benefit from the guidance that came to me. Is it reasonable to expect the Quran to teach me how to read it? Okay, I think I understand it. So can you open up just a little bit? What do you mean with it comes as a guidance, and then I need further guidance to be able to benefit from the guidance? What is this further guidance you are referring to, Zarar? If you can speak, if you are not eating or in a meeting.
No, I'm home. So it's like then someone needs to teach me how to read the Quran, or like what's the correct way of approaching it. So it's like the Quran in itself, like the guidance that came to me by itself is like insufficient.
So why do you call it insufficient?
Because then I need someone to teach me how to approach it.
So if I
It's
give
like,
you, for
that
like,
means I
let's,
need, I'm sorry, that means I need like further guidance to be able to benefit from the guidance itself. Or just
I
like,
see.
I don't know, I'm having trouble understanding this.
Okay, no, I see now. So if you want to learn, let's say, Chinese, this is just an example, of course, it's not the same thing. So don't take it as Quran is teaching us some knowledge and so on. Just an example. You want to learn Chinese, and please don't tell me that there are different ways to learn language and so on. This is just one example. You want to learn Chinese, and I give you a book, which is the best book that would teach you Chinese. Okay? And then I say that Yusuf is the one who knows Chinese best, also knows this book best. So he will guide you with this book. And together with this book and Yusuf, you will learn Chinese. Would conversation club. Oh yeah, the conversation club and so on. That's, yes, great. Would you call within this example, would you say that, oh Birkan, then your book is insufficient? Or would you say that, oh, then Yusuf is insufficient? Or this conversation club is insufficient? Would you say that? Or would you say that, oh, the book is the best book for its purpose, and I'm trying to read, learn Chinese from this book, but I also need, because I'm trying to learn a human language, I also need a human guide to understand how to implement what is written in the book. So you wouldn't call it as an insufficient book, right? You wouldn't call it as, oh, but Birkan, it doesn't make sense. If book is already there, why I need Yusuf and so on. That this is how human learns, how human understands. Think about your entire life, from your childhood. There was always a human guide with you, your father, your mom, your teachers, and so on and so forth, guiding you through the things, let's say, given in the form of books or in the creation and so on. This is how you learn. Not because one of them are insufficient. They are fulfilling different purposes in the best way.
So I understand like the example you gave me, and yeah, that it makes perfect sense. But I just feel like, because when we look at the Quran, you think like it should be like, at least in my mind, we should not be able to compare this to any other book. So like any analogy that we come up with for the Quran should fall insufficient within my experiences, because then we claiming that this book comes from, that is nothing within this creation. Like the book comes from God essentially. There's nothing in creation that could be the source of this book. Which is why then my expectation from the book should be different from like every other book that I see.
So your expectations are shaped by your human experiences. So that's the reason Yusuf was saying that at the beginning, we learn about the Creator through the creation, through Quran, through Prophet, and through conscience, right? And when you look at it, all of them have the kind of the same style, because coming from the same source. So all your learning experience as a human being was in a certain way. And the question is, why would you expect something else? Like your Creator is speaking to you through the creation, and then through the book, and then through the the human guide and so on. And your expectations are shaped by your human experiences. So when I say that there must be someone, who created this universe and then who should teach me, where did I come up with such an idea? Through my human experiences. Now your human experiences tells you that you, as a human being, you always need a human guide to show you how to implement things as a human. This is what you experience from your birth. Where did you come up with some other expectations or other, restrictions? Oh, no, this book has to be in a way that I will read it and I will understand everything. Where did you come up with such an idea? I think it came from the idealization. Did I press it? No, you don't. I think it must have come from the idealization of the creator, who is all knowing, all powerful, and if he sends a text, that must be something different, completely different from the ones that were produced by human beings. And it is different. Like, you read it, it answers your questions. I read it, it answers my questions. So
I think in general, what we are missing in here is we are taking ourselves out of the equation. Like, we as a learning creature, we feel like as if learning is just information transfer. Like, somebody is going to put that disk into me, it will get uploaded, and I will, that's it, I found it. But that's not how learning is working for human. Human is meant to learn by, we take something for true initially, then something apparently similar but a little wrong is introduced to us. Then we realize, oh, I was wrong. So right and wrong starts getting next to each other. We realize, oh, it was not actually that true. So I update my truth. This is how we are learning. And if you really think about it, what Zarar is trying to achieve in here, for example, is absolute truth in existence, which is by definition not possible. What we are trying to achieve in here, like, the question is coming from a point that I should be able to find pure, very clean truth. And Quran should tell me that pure, very clean truth. But this is what we have been discussing for the past 2 weeks. Whatever you land your hand on is going to be a created being, which is going to be a limited version of, since now we are talking about truth, limited version of truth. Meaning it's not the absolute truth. It's not the pure truth. There's going to be a truer version of that truth for you tomorrow. Even if that truth is La ilaha illallah, which is the main message of the Quran, tomorrow you are going to understand a better La ilaha illallah. It is still, you are going to represent it with the same word La ilaha illallah. But yesterday's La ilaha illallah and today's La ilaha illallah is different for you. So the description that the questioner is asking from here is to achieve this absolute truth. But as a human being, this is like whatever you touch would be created. This is why the same question that Zara is asking here could be applied to universe as well. Like, as Quran is speech of God, universe is speech of God too. The accident that you went through, that Zara, that you're not able to use your legs as functional as you used to use years before, it's a creation. It's a creation that is happening to you, and it is speech of the same creator, as Quran is the speech of the creator. As we are looking at it from the speech of God point of view, as we were discussing last week, it's like the creator, so it is absolute and whatnot. But as it looks to you, you are being exposed to a created meaning, a created interpretation. Hence, what you understood from that 5 years ago, you were very upset because of that. But now you're very happy, probably. And 10 years later, you're going to be even more happy, more thankful for that injury that you had in your leg. You are updating your meaning, your understanding. So we are talking about human perception here. We are not talking about, I mean, it's going to be an unreasonable expectation to say that whatever I touch in Quran would be the truth. I mean, this is a myth. Let's forget about that. But practically speaking, where am I coming from? I'm coming from a point that I do understand as a created being by the mixtures of right and wrong. And I am trying to refine this. This is where I am. And this is what I am meant to be as a human being. Let's accept that. This is how the Creator creates me. This being the case, a more relevant question, maybe a relevant question becomes, how can I refine that understanding? This is where then revelation, existence, prophet, conscience comes together. And then as an abd, meaning a needy person, I am saying that, oh, my Creator, I am putting my efforts and following these, considering these 4 different sources. My point is to get to find truth, but you are the guide. You guide me to the right path. So that would be my state, rather than me trying to say that, no, I will find the absolute white truth and I will conquer the truth. This is more of a, since it's impossible anyways, but there's also a tint of either not knowing what I'm talking about or arrogance in there. This is why the other one is even more humane in terms of being, I am an abd, and this is what I am. I cannot do any more than that anyways.
Going back to Mustafa's question, like he was asking, then how am I going to read? Am I just going to take the book and read and come up with an understanding myself? Or am I going to benefit from tafsir written about this ayah? Or am I going to also need to know sabab al-nuzul, right? The background, historical background of this ayah and so on. Because it sounds as if what Yusuf is suggesting, oh, you don't need any of this, just take the book and read, it will speak to you. Right? I guess that's the background of the question. So at least to me, it all again boils down to our human experiences. Like you are a medical doctor. Are you already a medical doctor, or are you going to become? Yeah, you are right now. So you are a medical doctor. You are studying the human body. How do you study it? Do you take go to a morgue and say that, oh, give me a human body, I will study it myself. I don't care about, what other people think. I don't need any guidance and so on, like the lead. Just give me the human body. I can take care of it. You don't do it, right? Why? You need, you don't know how to read it, right? You don't know how to read body. So first you need, you need some guidance there. But to some extent, you will figure out, because you have the same body, you will say, oh yeah, these are the arms. I know that. These are the legs, right? This is heart. There must be a liver somewhere, right? You have some understanding yourself. But if you are serious with your profession, you will spend all these years to understand it. Right? If you are taking it seriously. Like in our experiences, there is nothing, there's no example, maybe other than Zaran, who would take something serious and then say that, oh, my understanding is enough for me. No example in my life, at least. If I take something serious, I'm ready to spend my years. Right? I mean, how many years you've been studying? all these years. Why? Just to get some money, a little bit money, like whatever they, decide to give you. To get that, you spend all your life. A few papers, piece of papers, right? Now we are talking about your life, your purpose, why you are getting older. That's the question. So if you are taking it serious, you will follow a similar path, right? You will say, I must study it. I must learn it. If it requires you, I'm not suggesting anything, it's your responsibility. If it requires you to learn Arabic, you will learn Arabic. Why? How many years you spent to learn mathematics? Dua. How many years you spent learning mathematics? 20. Why? Because your profession is written in the language of mathematics, right? How many years you spend to study the textbooks of best professors or whatever, the scientists, all these years. Why? Because you say they are the ones who understand this language of mathematics better than me. There must be some people knowing it better than me. This is your expectation, right? Just like the Prophet, there must be someone better understanding, his needs and so on. So there must be such people, and you look for them because you take it serious. So would you just sit in front of the Quran and say that it's a book, I can read it, it will teach me, like a talk to me? It's just denying your human experiences. You're just, giving it, like you're not, it's not a worthy thing in front of your eyes, it means. What you need to study, though, again, it depends on how you define Quran. If you define Quran as a, mainly set of historical events, it is written so I will get some lesson out of it. If this is your definition, you should definitely spend a lot of time on historical background of the ayahs. You should, if this is your definition. If you have another definition, then you should spend your time based on this definition. What to study, how you define Quran. Abdullah Iftikhar, will a person be punished if he perceived the speech of Quran wrong? Serious question. So, any ideas? Serious ideas? Abdurrahman, please.
No, I'm just thinking of what we covered in the beginning, and how there's the creation, and then there's the conscience, and then there's the prophet, and then there's the Quran itself. If I perceive the Quran to be wrong, for example, in my mind, mercy means that there can be no death. And I read the Quran, I come up with this meaning. I've really just kind of also implemented my own meaning in there. Mercy must mean this, so nothing must die or something. I mean, when I look at life, creation, I will see death instantly. So I will feel pain because this book isn't teaching me. And then I look at my conscience and I still fear death. I don't like death. So I guess I'm taking the punishment here as I misinterpret or make like a false conclusion that the Quran is not telling me, but I, based on my own ego or something, or false conceptions or prejudices, I've come up with some meaning, then instantly I am punished because I feel pain when I look at the world. I don't feel security. I don't feel peace. So this was me just saying one form of the punishment is because of that misinterpretation. The way I live is painful for me.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So like when you have, I believe everybody is familiar with, laptops, at least to some extent. So you want to use the laptop and you say, okay, I don't know how to use it. There must be a user manual. So would you be punished if you read the user manual wrong? Let's say you plug the power cord to a USB port, not the power jack, not the USB port. Would you be punished? Yes, you would be burning your USB circuit, right? So you are reading Quran to understand your life, where you are going
Can
to.
I add a small thing?
Yeah, please.
Can you clarify? I mean, you are going in that direction, but what Abdullah was asking about punishment and you're defining a different punishment. Can you make a bridge?
On purpose, yeah. So when I didn't want to make a generic, explanation, but the way we usually take punishment as something external, like I'm doing some stuff and brother Ali doesn't like, my comments and so on, and comes and slap me. This is the way we take usually the punishment, right? But he wouldn't do that, inshallah. But what we try to do here is, when it comes to punishment, as something that we can verify that it's happening, and that something not external. That when I harm myself, for instance, this is a punishment. When I misdefine myself as a human being, when I say that, okay, I'm a human being, I have to maximize my pleasures. This is the life. I made a wrong definition of myself. I will try this. I will try to maximize my pleasure out of life. And I will, with no doubt, no question, I will end up with misery. So this is my punishment.
So let me just make it. So I am feeling like, in general, Abdullah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but let's say Quran talks about prophets, and I say, well, actually, you know what Quran means by prophets is scientists. So you should follow scientists today. And this is my understanding of Quran, let's say I said. And Abdullah says, well, you are denying the point of prophethood. And in the afterlife, they're going to make a very good barbecue out of you. You're going to receive punishment because you denied prophet and you replaced them with some other guys, which has nothing to do with God and whatnot. You will be punished in the afterlife because you misinterpreted Quran. Is this what you're saying?
I'm saying that, yeah, that might be the case. Maybe you will be barbecued in the afterlife. The point is, in this life, within this moment as well, when I follow the wrong people, I will feel the fire in this life as well. So this is the punishment that we are more concerned right now. Because if I see the fire in this life, that I follow the wrong path, I feel myself in a miserable position of meaninglessness, of purposefulness, trying to satisfy my desires and constantly failing, right? Even if I achieve it now, I know that in 5 years, I will not even have these desires anymore. They will be taken away from me. So when I see that, and when I feel this fire, now I can say that, oh yes, there must be a bigger fire. When I graduate from the school, which is the grave. Like if you are a terrible student, you will have the punishment while you are a student, because you will fail your classes. You wouldn't understand anything. You will start questioning why you are there in university and so on. This is your initial punishment. But you know for sure when you graduate, a bigger punishment awaits you, which is you will be out of job. The same way, before going to grave and the afterlife, I already have this punishment in this life. When I make a wrong interpretation of Quran, my life becomes miserable. I am quote unquote punished. Now I can say for sure that when I graduated from the school of life, when they ask me what was the purpose, I will definitely fail. That would be the, let's say, the bigger punishment I think Abdullah was asking.
And that punishment is a mercy in itself as well, because it's a warning sign, like this fire that I experience, the fire of meaninglessness, the darkness of purposelessness, is a mercy, saying that this discomfort is being created, is being given to me, saying that wake up, turn back from your mistake, learn the right answer. And since we are taking the example of how to read prophetic stories, we can plug in the story of Adam alayhi salam in here again. In there, Satan was saying that, you know why your creator didn't ask you to get to this tree? Because you're going to become eternal or become like angel, which was a wrong interpretation suggested by Satan to human. And human said, wow, maybe, let me take this interpretation. If I eat from that tree, I'm going to become eternal. Eating from that tree makes them realize that, no, that interpretation was not true, because I tried it and still I am the same me. I'm not eternal. So this falsehood of that interpretation becomes clear to me. I realize my nakedness, I realize my neediness in the face of this trickery. Then Adam alayhi salam, after this punishment, I mean, it's one way of it is a punishment, the other way of the very same punishment is teaching. Like if a teacher catches you did some wrong answer in the exam, students here, you did something wrong in the exam, and the teacher takes a red pen, scratches it, and writes something over there, and says minus 10 points. It's a punishment. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to learn from that mistake. So it's good that the teacher gives you minus 10. It would be a bad teacher if the teacher lets you go without you learning from your mistake. So these punishments at the same time are mercy of your creator, those darkness, the feeling of fire and whatnot, even in this life. So yes, Abdullah, you're going to be punished if you misunderstand it. And even because Abdullah's question is two wings. One is I intentionally misunderstand, unintentionally I misunderstand. In both cases, it's a mistake. And my creator, out of his mercy, at different scales, will guide me to right path. But this generally happens in life by giving me different feelings. And it could be sometimes I am extremely careful about my daughter, my son, overly worried about them, and sleepless nights becomes my punishment, saying that you're going too much. Step back.
Abdullah takes it to the specific way, like a place. He says, let me read this second part first. He says, is it always possible to notice this punishment in life and reach a conclusion that this is where I was wrong? Like the above example, he says, and the example is Zabiya halal chicken versus non-Zabiya halal chicken. So he says, like, how am I going to know when I eat non-Zabiya halal chicken, which is wrong, he says, how am I going to know that it is wrong? So Abdullah, this is not the critics, okay? This is just, I'm trying to give a explanation here. So this is not a fiqh class. So what is zabiha? How you define non-zabiha, zabiha? What is halal? What is not halal? This is not our goal here. And I'm not saying this again, you shouldn't ask such questions. How dare? I'm just trying to give a definition for this halaqah. So definition of this halaqah is we will start from the beginning, not assuming that we are already fully cooked Muslims, fully educated Muslims who already know all what is halal, what is haram, what is zabiha, what is non-zabiha, and so on and so forth, and then exchange these ideas. This is not the definition. Definition here is we need to establish the fundamentals of Iman. What is belief in Creator? What is belief in scriptures? What is belief in Prophet? That's the definition of this halaqah. We study them so that in future, if you are interested, you can build your fiqh, the interest or questions on top of them. Otherwise, if you start from the fiqh and just take it as a, let's say, a cultural set of rules and so on and so forth, this is not what we are interested. And this is not the definition of this class. Like with your question, first you have to have an understanding of what is halal. What do you mean with halal? What is zabiha, right? And I'm not talking about like just coming up with your own definition. I'm just telling you, like, what do you mean with when you say halal? First, you have to establish these fundamentals. I'm ignoring ethics. Joke, and then any other comments, question? Let's finish your beautiful comments, inshallah. We are out of time.
I'm sorry, but it's a question. But I'm just gonna say it. Okay, it's a quick one. So Yusuf talked about how like if like for example, if a verse is about lying, don't lie. A person who's an engineer will understand it in one way, or like the asal is don't lie, but you can apply it to your life in different ways, and you can think of different lies that you maybe told in your life, or you could tell, and whatever, and that's perfectly fine. But then like for very specific verses, I just feel like it becomes very hard to apply it to yourself. Like when I was talking to Burkan, I gave him the example of Surah Ahzab, and when the Quran very specifically says, "O wives of the Prophet, you are not like any of the other women." It's really hard to apply that to myself, or to think about it as if it's talking to me. But also, like these days, I've been seeing like this trend where there's this voice, which is a verse of the Quran, which goes like, "O Prophet, we have not." Actually, it doesn't say "O Prophet." It's just we have not abandoned you, nor have we like become mad at you. And people just use it, and then the caption is something like, "Oh, like sisters, if you're feeling bad about this and that." So everyone's applying that to themselves, and I'm thinking, what if God is genuinely mad at someone? And they're just hearing this and they're like, okay, I'm perfectly fine because God is not mad at me. God is saying this to the Prophet. Everyone is thinking of it as if it applies to themselves. So then God is not mad at anyone, and everyone's just happy and just living their lives and being carefree and whatnot. So like, where does it end? Where do you draw the line? Like that's my problem. Like I just feel like, yes, for the majority of the Quran, I absolutely agree with you. And I feel like there have been some parallel discussions where like we aren't really talking about interpretation, we're really talking about understanding. And I agree with you, the understanding is going to be different, even if we're all reading the same tafsir. But for specific verses, I feel like it's just really, really hard to think of it any other way than, God is talking to the Prophet, or God is talking to the wives of the Prophet.
Go ahead, let's finish with you.
So I think answering this would best be by examples, because although you said for majority of the Quran, I agree. If we were to go line by line, you can disagree with majority of Quran as well with the same logic. But if we exemplify what all these boils down to, then you will be able to very clearly see how it applies to the very verse that you just mentioned, for example. I think it would make more sense to work on examples in the inshallah upcoming classes, so that we will see how it works. Otherwise, theorizing it too much is also not going to work too well.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.